Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Pro Trader and Plus and GDP with unemployment claims. And welcome to everyone that's streaming with us on YouTube. This is our stream of the week. My name is Lee Goldstein. I'm the trading director for 10-Minute Trades. Please remember all the trades we discuss are for educational purposes. I'm not a financial advisor, so please trade carefully. It's possible to lose money trading futures. Okay, good morning, everyone. So I just wanted to show you that there are quite a few elements that make up the news that's taking place this morning. Quite a few different reports. You have some PCE prices in preparation for tomorrow's big report, real consumer spending, corporate profits, Chicago Fed national activities. There's a lot of reports besides jobless claims and GDP. So I don't have to tell you that with all that news, it definitely is a higher risk event. You know, it's not a family money trade. GDP can be very volatile. And yet, what's interesting is last month we had GDP with a fair amount of news, and it was a very tiny reaction. So it's just like all news reports. There's never a way to know for sure, but we go with our testing, and that's how we set up the setups. We look at the testing, and in the case of GDP, we have a spike list, and a spike list is very helpful because it shows us how large the spikes have been going back to December. Okay? That influences how we come up with our tiers. And then when there's high targets, that represents the fact that there's been a big reversal also. Okay. So if we have a trap trade set up, it's because we have that spike list that has a history of spikes that have worked with our trap trade setup. Okay. I did call the trader's trade desk just to check. I didn't think this was a margin trade, and it's not with Ninja. So it's a normal regular trade. Let's take a peek at the DMM. So we're not really big on the range trade currently with this report. The gold trap trade is the preferred setup. And if you notice, the tiers are very big. This is a trade that if it has a small move, we're not getting filled. It's just the way it is. Because why are the tiers big? Look at the spikes. 61 ticks. March was small, only 12 ticks. That would have not been a fill. February in the 60s. So virtually 4 out of the last 5 were big spikes. Okay, so that's one of the ways that we come up with how we're going to set up our tiers. So Roz, don't even get all worked up and worried about thinking about tiers with the trap trade. Yeah, you're always going to use the bigger tier. You're always going to use the bigger tier. Okay? In other words, but you don't have to worry about it being tier 1 or 2 on the software. Just use tier 1 if you're going to trade one tier. Just use tier 1. No apology necessary. Why are you apologizing? For what? So in other words, if we have a 70, just make tier 1 your 70 and make tier 1, nothing will be in there. You won't have anything there. I'll show everybody in case people want to trade one tier. So let's set up the trade. So the one difference today is it's a quicker spike. Sometimes it can trigger early. We want to wait. Spike is not wait for spike. Hang on. Prep seconds is what I'm talking about. Let's start over. Okay, prep seconds is 1. It's usually 5. We're going to wait till the last second to prep. To trigger. So if you want to trade just one position, one tier, make position size 2 a 0. Tier 2 is a 0. And tier 1 would be 70 because that's our tier choice. Now, Chantal is saying she might slightly adjust it down, Roz. You can do that too. You can do that too. You could use a slightly smaller tier on the outside tier on your, on your choice. It's always up to you. It's, if the bigger the tier, remember that it's your bigger zone of safety if we get filled. If there's a 70 tick tier, and a 20 tick stop, that's 90 ticks. The price has to move, okay? But the reason Chantal's saying what she's saying, if you look at the spike list, if you use 70 for your outside tier, you're not going to get filled. All the spikes were under 70. So you're better off using 60. Makes total sense what she's saying. See, when you have 2 tiers, it's perfectly fine if only one of them fills, especially with gold, because gold moves a lot. It's $10 a tick, so your opportunity for profit is big, whether it moves and fills 1 tier or 2. But understanding why we set up these trades the way we do, if you're going to trade that 1 tier, I would probably trade it at 60, okay? Because that way, if there's a good move, you'll have a chance of getting filled. If you make it 70, for the past 5 or 6 months, there wouldn't have been a fill. So for the 2 tier of us, I'm going to do 55 and 70. The time of the event is 8:30. Prep is 1 second. The stop is 20. And that's my trap. Okay. Trap trades are pretty simple. Don't forget that you want to be able to see all your, when you enable a trap trade, you want to be able to see all your buttons. So if you don't see the combine button, like I'm not seeing the combine button right now, my charts need to be vertically wider. Vertically wider. Just a tiny bit. And now I can see all the buttons. You got a break even button. Move the stop to break even. Close the trade. Adjust the tiers. Obviously, there's not going to be time to adjust anything today. Cancel the outer tier. I always will talk through that. If my first tier fills and my second tier doesn't fill and price starts moving in your favor and you get an opportunity to move the stop into safety, that's when you start thinking about canceling that outer tier so that you don't have an order in the way of your stop being moved. And then combining orders. You know, sometimes if you get a slow moving trap trade, you might want to combine orders. So combining orders just allows you to manipulate both or all of your orders with one position. They'll all be in one position. I'm going to keep the news off to the side. ZN. In my opinion, ZN probably, it has a good possibility of moving on this report, but it hasn't been a good testing instrument for this report. But if you know, GDP is important. It's one of those events that, especially because we had some Fed info this week, you know, the minutes. Usually the weeks that we have Fed info, bonds tend to be a little bit more active. So it's certainly possible. Also, it's GDP. GDP has an effect on bonds for sure. So I'll watch bonds. You know, if I wanted to try a bond breakout trade, and it really, honestly, it's not a big, fantastic testing trade. That's the truth, bonds. You could use, you know, a bracket of 7-ish, 6 or 7, and a very typical kind of bond trade, targets of 6 and 15, stop of 12-ish, 10 to 12, somewhere in there. Okay. Yeah, ZN was decent. ZN was decent. So there is a possibility it could move. So if I were going to trade bonds on this, I would do something like, I always like to do bonds 2 seconds before the event. So I'd do 8:29:58. Bonds tend to allow that extra second with no problem. I think a bracket of 6 is fine. And my targets would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 and 15. And my stop, I like a stop of 10. And that's pretty much what I would be looking at to trade bonds. Okay. Account warnings off. And because I have a trap trade, I'm really just going to concentrate on the trap. I'm not going to trade bonds. I'm not going to simulate them. I'm assuming a whole bunch of people will probably do them. Now, on let me show you something. I'm just going to save the template. GDP. ZN. We checked our time sync. I do want to remind everybody, register for our webinar, if you would. We have a webinar coming up Saturday. I don't know what craziness made me do it on a Saturday on Labor Memorial Day weekend. Let's look at a trap trade with gold on this. So I did a bunch of testing. This was April. And a few of them took a little bit of time to fill. So I'd probably wait up to 30 seconds. That was an awesome trap trade back in April. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was huge. It was one tier and you didn't have to do anything. And then in March, if I remember correctly, there was no fill. March was just a very small response. And we did, the NQ tends to create a big range on this report. Sometimes too big of a range. The range can be so big that it makes it really hard to wait for a profit. And then I tested February also for the trap trade. February took 28 seconds to fill. "28 seconds to fill." So I would definitely wait at least 30 seconds on this report. And then January, filled pretty quick, one tier. And it had a nice reversal also, decent reversal. So the trap has tested real nicely. It has tested very, very nicely. Any questions? Any questions? All right, so one more time. The trap setup. We're using a 20-tick stop. We've got tiers of 55 and 70. The time of the event is 8:30. Okay. That's 2 tiers. Preparation, activation is 1 second. Then on bonds, for a bond breakout, hang on. Bond breakout. I have a bracket of 6. Targets of 6 and 15. Triggering at 8:29.58. A stop of 10. And that's my bond trade. Okay, account warnings are off. Remember how bonds are behaving. On a lot of reports, they're working very well, but they're doing a little bit of chop at the beginning of the trade. So try to be patient. Try to just sit tight with bonds for 20 or 30 seconds to make sure you're getting a good direction. That's the gold open. That just was a superb open. If you were trading it. The gold open yesterday and today was amazing. keep in mind that, you know, the way your charts are spread is going to very much determine whether or not you think a move is big. It's 8:20. It's 8:20, Chantal. It's 8:20. It was early. It was early. It was early. I understand. It was early. That was a trade. If we were trading the gold open, we would have missed it. Yesterday's gold open. I happened to be watching gold at the open yesterday. It was crazy also. All right. Bear with me. So 1962. It was a three. That was a $3 move in a minute, about a minute, and it just retraced almost 3/4 of it. And bonds open, and they moved early also. It's interesting. They moved early also. So I want to thank everybody that's watching us on YouTube. If you'd be kind enough to hit that like button. Hit the like button. If you hit the notification bell, you'll know the next time. You'll know the next time that we are going to stream. We stream once a week. And we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. All right. So we'll see what kind of move we get this morning. It's an unknown last, you know, it's definitely these reports, they have been trending down somewhat. Quite a few of the reports. This one has stayed relatively the same if you look at the spikes. We'll look at the spikes one more time. I just want to set my news up once more. I blew it off the screen. Just give me 1 second. There's quite a lot of news elements this morning, which I like for a trap trade because that gives you a lot of chopping around. We like that on a trap trade. We have Fed activity, jobless claims, some PCE prices, GDP, which is the big mover today, most probably, and initial jobless claims, real consumer spending. There's been, it's a lot of news. It's a lot of news for one report, so it could chop. But I do think that GDP is what the markets are looking at the most. So that's what we're looking at. And what we can do after this. We have a reasonably busy day today. Natural gas and pending homes. That's why I started the room early. Thought we'd watch pending homes. And we'll have natural gas, and then we'll be back for the 12-year note, 7-year note auction at 12:30. And then Costco. And I still have my last minute testing to do on Costco. So I can't say truly how I feel about Costco yet. It's a last minute test, that one. But overall, earnings were pretty interesting and pretty good this quarter. I had some very nice earnings trades. and a lot of new ones to look forward to also. So everybody knows that Chantal and I do the testing together, and that's why Frank is asking, Chantal, what are you trading? So one of the things about Chantal, Frank, that you should know, she trades a lot of prop accounts also. And some of the prop accounts make it tricky to trade the breakouts. So she will not trade nearly as many breakouts as I will. Okay? Correct. Eva agreed. There can be issues with breakouts being able to keep up with their data feeds. That's something that some folks have had to deal with. So what Chantal's saying is she won't put orders on both sides. Like yesterday, she traded NVIDIA and traded one side as a breakout. And, depending on which prop company you're using, they might hit you with extra rules when you want to get paid about news. So you have to be careful. All right, we're getting there. I hate to use the word bad fills, Eva. Um, what happens with trap trades is if there's liquidity issues, it, that's what trap trades exist on. In other words, you might get a burst in one direction, but it'll go far enough to fill you. But if it was a breakout, you might have gotten filled at the bottom of the candle. Where on that trap trade, you might want to be filled at the bottom of the candle because you want that reversal. So, Eva, I don't like to call it a bad fill because it's actually a good fill. What might be a bad fill for a breakout is often a good fill for a trap trade. And it's only nomenclature. So whatever but I totally get it. Now, Langford makes an interesting point about money management. In many ways, I think money management, in some ways, goes out the window with news trading because there's just some trades that you'll happily take even when your money management on that particular trade is not good. That's one of the unique aspects of news trading. You might have a very big stop, smaller targets, but you might have a report that you really think is going to work because of its history. Prop accounts are a whole different animal. I hate them and I like them, depending on the day. I canceled my outer tier, and I'm going to trail if I get the opportunity. So I didn't get the opportunity to trail, but I canceled my outer tier, grabbed a quick 290. I'm positive that I was too impatient on that. Look how it tested the low and reversed off the low. I'm so sorry that we didn't discuss that before the trade. Now I want to just jump off a bridge because I knew I was moving my stop too soon. That's a $500 trade easily. Easily if you stayed in. If you stayed in. But be careful, okay? Be careful. So let's get a roll call. Ali, very good, very good, very good. Look, folks, the testing on the trap was great. Now, I didn't watch bonds. Who traded bonds? Who traded bonds? MGC didn't fill Langford. What were your now see why you have to be so careful when you take a profit on a trap trade? It's just sometimes so unknown what the price is going to do after the news. Let's go over the news for a second. We'll take a roll call in a minute. In a minute. In a minute. I just say this all the time. There's nothing worse than a trap trade that blows through your stops. But the testing, it doesn't happen all that often. You know, it's like a breakout that does a quadruple whipsaw. Of course, it happens, but it doesn't happen enough to make us not want to news trade, right? Look at all the news was positive, and that's a reason, except for corporate profits. All right, all the news was positive. Although think about it, jobless claims being green is not positive. It's not positive. Larry, you couldn't get VN to get a profit. It didn't give a profit. It was just two ticks, two ticks less, two tick less. Now, Langford, I'm just curious, what sizes did you use on the on MGC? What tier sizes did you use? Move stop too soon, too tight. That's what I was saying, Larry. It's so hard to do, so hard to do with bonds. If you would have been patient, would it have worked? Would it have worked? MGC was only 49 ticks. Interesting, interesting. How many ticks was regular gold, Chantal? Chantal is the tick queen. The tick queen. It's the most important. It's actually the most important element of calculating how to trade these reports. And what Fred did was really smart, and you're allowed to do it. And if you all would watch the videos on the trap trade that are on the member website, you might have thought about doing what Fred did. He used the same tiers, but he moved into the price to get a fill. On a trap trade, if it gets close to your fill, you can move your order into the price to get filled. Especially if it's a 40 or 50 tick move and your tiers are 60 or 70. You can move into the price. But look at how important it was not to hang around too long. Now, this is something we did not know. We did not know that this is one of the first that really continued on and on and on in the same direction. All the other trades that we have been testing had a more solid reversal. And this is the first one in a while that, fortunately, it still had a good reversal, but then it went back into the trend. It went back into the trend. Let's watch the video. But what I was saying about the news is jobless claims are negative because, although depending what year you're in, they're probably positive now because the Fed wants to make people unemployed. And there's more people applying for claims. That's not green, really. That would be red. GDP being up, you know, some people probably think that's inflationary. Personally, I think the numbers are perfectly fine as good news, not bad news. Okay? I think the GDP is good news. And the jobless claims, if you're a worker, they're bad news, not good news, if more people had to apply for unemployment. The world in many ways is upside down, you know. Less inflation, more unemployment, right? That's a shame. Let's look at the video. Give me 1 second. Bear with me. I got to get this video the right way, and it's acting a little crazy. 2 seconds. So it was prelim GDP, Thursday claims. Don't you want to be discretionary trading when they announce a debt ceiling agreement? Okay, here's the video. So again, look at the tick spikes. Today was significantly smaller than the past 4 out of 5. Okay, significantly smaller than the past 4 out of 5. We'd probably still keep our settings for 1 more month. You just don't want to go shrinking a trap trade on one report. Now, it may be, you could say maybe it's 2 out of the last 6. So, Chantal, when we test, these are the things we talk about in the testing. Now, clearly, the markets at this moment, like the news, right? The ES is popping. Although it took a few minutes, at first the ES went down. Now it's going up. Sorry, Marianne. We were trading gold. And we were also, some of our members were trading bonds as well. And we have reports that we generate the day before an event that has advice on what our trade setup is going to be. That's how we do this. Sometimes we have a brand new setting the day of the trade because of testing that we did at the last minute. That's also possible. But I'm sorry I didn't see your question. I apologize. I got distracted by the trade, to be honest. All right. I want to thank everybody on YouTube for watching our next stream of the week. If you hit the notification bell, you'll know when we're streaming again next week. We do a free stream once a week. So thanks everyone on YouTube. We're going to close our stream and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button on your way out. We'd appreciate it.